Hey everyone, and welcome to Fright, your source for short horror reviews. I'm your host, the Fear Fan, and thanks for tuning in. You know, I usually use Fright Bites to deliver short movie reviews, but I have been known to make an exception when there is a book or game that I particularly want to discuss. And what better reason to make an exception than for a game that's based off a film that's one of my top 3 horror movies of all time. I'm speaking, of course, about Alien Isolation, the new FPSH based off everyone's favorite chest-bursting outer space rape beast. And, while you might think that creating a frightening game based off a critter that breathes exclusively by ramming an ovipositor down your throat would be easy, it would seem that recreating the edge-of-your-seat tension of the Ridley Scott classic, or even that of the James Cameron sequel, have proved more elusive than you might expect. A point probably best summed up by the massively negative reaction to the broken promises and slipshod delivery of Alien's Colonial Marines. A reaction probably best summed up by none other than Ellen Ripley herself.
I don't know which species is worse. You don't see them fucking each other over for a goddamn percentage.
Fortunately, Alien Isolation managed to buck that trend, and while it may not be the perfect organism that the xenomorph itself is, it does manage to provide a surprisingly authentic trip through the Alien universe. That, and it does have enough atmosphere, scares, and serious nods to please fans of the franchise. First off, it's impossible to discuss this game without heaping praise in several areas: art design, sound design, and gameplay. Let me state up front that this is a gorgeous game. It's clear in every frame and vista that not only were the game designers dedicated to creating an experience dripping with the aesthetic of Ridley Scott's Alien, but also in expanding it, using it in new and unexpected ways that serve to flesh out the Alien universe. Examples include showing us a mental health facility and a functioning reactor so huge that it has its own microclimate. Not only are these locations fascinating and fully realized, they are also gorgeously rendered, with some of the best lighting and flame effects that I've yet seen in a game. As nice as it looks, much has been made of the way the game sounds. To be honest, when I first started out, I was actually pretty disappointed. Sounds, while clear, always seemed to be coming from the wrong place, and it was almost impossible to track enemies by the noises they made, which should have been a vital game mechanic. I can't tell you just how many frustrating deaths that led to, and I quickly became pretty damn irritated. Then I realized that I had been wearing my newly purchased headphones backwards, and oh my god, this game sounds fucking amazing. Yes, I really did do something that stupid, but once I got it figured out, I realized just how fucking great this game sounds. By now, you've probably heard a ton of reviews saying that you should play this game with headphones, and I'm adding my voice to the chorus. Not only is this game a visual feast, but the creative team has created full-on immersive soundscapes that not only aid you in gameplay, but which will have you drawn completely into the experience. One small but very cool example that springs to mind is when I was on a spacewalk and heard a faint rattling. It took me a second to realize that what I was hearing were actually small pieces of station debris pinging off my suit. They've actually put that much thought into it. And while looking and sounding pretty are important, none of that matters if the game itself doesn't play worth a damn. Luckily, the game itself, despite the occasional glitch or two, plays extremely well. The controls are responsive, and the simplified heads-up display and easy-to-use radio menu make for a largely uncluttered experience that allows players to more easily immerse themselves in the game. Crafting is a fairly easy affair, and the search for new components encourages exploration of the vast space station Sevastopol where the game takes place. Not only is Sevastopol fascinating to explore, littered as it is with audio and text logs chronicling the station's descent into chaos, it's also populated with some interesting antagonists. These include human survivors, who have become so paranoid that they'll hold a gun on you, warning you off and even pulling the trigger if you don't listen, and Working Joes, Seeks Incorporation's budget model answer to Weyland-Yutani's lifelike synthetics, whose marginally human faces and eerily calm voices are the things that nightmares are made of. And while these threats offer a bit of variety, the real star of the show is the alien itself. During the game's marketing, a lot was made of the complex AI they were giving the creature, and while I can't speak to how smart it actually is, I can certainly say that it is a dangerous and unpredictable opponent, whose seemingly random hunting patterns and lightning speed will keep you on your toes whenever you hear the telltale sound of its approach. This thing will hunt you relentlessly, and there's nothing more bowel-evacuatingly terrifying than hearing its god-awful screech and the heavy thump of its footsteps as it sprints towards you. And while that certainly adds to the terror, the real praise should go to the creative team for the way they take all these diverse elements and bring it together in a single whole. Just as Red Barrels did in their excellent game Outlast, Creative Assembly has managed to take some very simple gameplay dynamics and exploit them to their fullest. thrusting you into new situations that force you to explore new tactics rather than letting you stick with a single foolproof strategy throughout. You'll have levels where you can't trust your motion tracker, levels where you have to rely on your ears, levels where ambient sound makes listening for opponents useless, levels where you have an arsenal, levels where you've got nothing but your wits to survive on. Basically, every possible permutation of the game's mechanics is explored. Unfortunately, that means the game has a pretty steep learning curve, especially on its recommended hard mode. This game expects you to move carefully and play with caution. Add to that infrequent save points, which, while they certainly encourage players to watch their step rather than charging from autosave to autosave, also mean that one false move can lose you up to a half hour of progress, which can lead to a certain degree of understandable frustration in players. Also, while the story has its bright points, it is rather sparse, and although there are some genuinely interesting characters with a great potential for depth, that potential is rarely explored. By the time the game closed, I had borne witness to several outstanding character moments that were sadly robbed of their impact by the fact that I hadn't been given the chance to form a bond with these people. And speaking of the end, while it's nowhere near as bad as Mass Effect 3's notorious fizzle, it does end on a sequel-baiting cop-out that will have some fans screaming, "Game over, man! It's game over!" Still, despite those flaws, Alien Isolation is definitely worth a purchase for those moments when the game's good elements come together. For example, I'll never forget crawling through the corridors of Sevastopol, avoiding working Joes and rounding a corner, only to see a blip appear in front of me on my motion tracker. There's nothing there, so I take a step forward. And only then do I notice the drool pouring from a ceiling vent inches in front of me. I can't even describe the tension as I slowly backed around the corner where I came and heard something drop from the vent and begin searching for me. In short, if you're thinking of picking up Alien Isolation, don't do so for the plot or story. Instead, do it for the experience. You won't be disappointed. Anyway, that's all we have time for this week. I'll see you next time on Fright Bites.